Hi, CIA candidates. My name is Melissa Leonard. I'm the CIA product manager here at Glyme. I'm really excited to have you guys join us today as I have a conversation with our lead Glyme personal counselor, Sincera Keene.
Hi, everybody.
We're going to talk today about online testing for the CIA exam. This is something that's new. It's been very recent since COVID-19. It was put into place by the IIA in partnership with Pearson VUE so that they can continue offering a safe way for people to continue taking the CIA exam. But I do also want to remind candidates that if you do have to take the exam at a physical testing centers are open. Uh, but however, there are some that are still may remain closed, or it might be hard to get testing appointments due to increased measures of making sure that everything is safe, including social distancing, also an increased demand in taking the exam after testing centers were closed for so long. And also just kind of keep in mind and make sure that you verify any of the new policies going into the testing centers before you go. So one very important policy is that you will be required to wear a face mask throughout your exam. So just make sure that you are aware of that. You bring your face mask and you do wear that so that there's nothing stopping you from getting into the testing center and taking your exam. But as I mentioned, today we are going to focus on the online testing for the CIA exam. I'm really excited to have Sincera here because as our lead personal counselor, she does talk to candidates daily about taking the CIA exam and about this online testing, and has gotten a lot of feedback and been helping them through this time. Also, she works with our entire team of personal counselors and gets to hear what all of their candidates are also saying, and really guiding candidates through this. So first, I just kind of want to give Sincera a couple seconds here to maybe talk about what she's hearing from candidates about this online testing, as far as like what's been the reaction so far, whether candidates are excited or apprehensive about this.
I would have to say that for the most part, candidates have really been glad to have this opportunity because of, as you were mentioning before, the limitations of opportunities to actually sit for the exam in testing centers and potential delays that candidates would be looking at, especially with the limited certification program window that they have once they get started. Having the opportunity to sit from home really means that candidates aren't experiencing those delays as much. So I think that overall the reaction has been relatively positive.
Wonderful. So really quickly, let's just kind of touch on the advantages of online testing, which I think we've kind of done a little bit already. But other than just like staying safe with COVID-19, what are some of the other advantages or things that people are liking about this?
I think just the comfort of being able to take the exam in their own home. For most of our candidates, they're going through their preparations at home, in their home office, or maybe at work. So being able to sit for the exam in that same environment, especially depending on, of course, the review system they use, but if they use us here at Glyme, the formatting that they're practicing in is exactly like what they're going to see on the exam. So at the end of the day, it's just like they're going through and maybe doing their exam rehearsal in their Glyme materials.
Wonderful. Yes. And I think also, as someone who has taken these exams and had to drive to testing centers, saves you a little bit of time too.
Absolutely.
Not having to travel. And some stress. Like you don't have the stress of traveling and getting there on time. So yeah.
Absolutely. I actually had one candidate that he didn't want to do the at-home testing, and he ended up having to drive about 5 hours to find a testing location. Thankfully, he was able to pass his exams and everything, but it was definitely a stressful situation to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad that candidates have this opportunity so that they can stay safe and also have this like convenient um, way of taking the exam.
Absolutely.
So, what are some of the major differences between at-home testing, the online testing, and going to the physical testing center? You know, things like, I mean, obviously we've just kind of talked about some of the advantages, but like, are there differences that candidates will notice between the two, especially if maybe they've taken it at a physical location already and now have to, or have decided to take it online?
Yeah, so I will say first that the important thing to keep in mind is that the formatting of the exam itself and the delivery system that you're going to see are going to be the exact same as in the actual testing center. So the number of questions and everything like that hasn't changed. Um, the big thing to remember for our candidates is that you won't have any scratch paper. So when you're in a testing center, you have the option for scratch paper, maybe a whiteboard that you can use to take notes. You're not permitted to do that with the at-home testing. Instead, you'll have an on-screen option. Outside of that, there aren't breaks for the at-home exam, so you're not allowed to get up and leave the room. Those are mainly the two things that candidates will notice. But one little thing that I have had some candidates report is that you're not allowed to wear a watch. Um, I'm not entirely sure if that's applicable to an actual testing center as well, but I do know that several candidates have reported a proctor telling them, hey, before we can get started, you need to take that watch off. So just keep that in mind.
Right, great. Yeah. And one thing too about the breaks, I think it's important to note is that the CIA exam itself does not have scheduled breaks. So really, while you are at the physical testing center allowed to get up and leave and take a break, there's not a scheduled one.
Mhm.
So if you're practicing and not wanting to do a break anyway because you don't want it to eat into your exam time, there's not going to be that huge of a difference, just so people feel comfortable knowing that as well. Um,
Absolutely.
are the fees or the costs to do online testing any different than doing the physical at-home testing?
They're not. In fact, the registration process for the online exam is pretty much the same as actually registering for the testing center. It's just basically a different box that you click when you're going through the registration process.
All right. Well, since you kind of started touching on that, can you walk us through what it's like to set up and register for the CIA online testing?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's basically just another option that you select when you're going through and actually registering for the exam. You will, of course, need to make sure that the device you plan on taking the exam meets certain specifications. So for example, you have to make sure you have a webcam and things like that. And there is a kind of diagnostic that you can complete on the IIA's website to make sure that what you have meets those requirements. Um, but at the end of the day, the process itself you don't have an extra step or extra registration process you have to go through or anything like that. Um, on the day of your exam, one thing you'll want to make sure you do is connect early and make sure you go through that diagnostic again. One experience that some candidates have reported is that maybe they've run the diagnostic beforehand and their computer maybe runs an update or something. And so it can lead to some delays in getting started on the day of your exam. So I recommend, you know, going through that another time the day of your exam beforehand. But at the end of the day, not any major changes, any major differences that candidates will experience.
That's a great tip about the diagnostic. I wouldn't have ever thought about having to do it in case an update because those updates can be pesky, that's for sure.
Yeah.
um, and kind of because you're discussing the registration process, I know that a lot of candidates take the exam in multiple languages
Mhm.
or the CIA exam is offered in multiple languages, and so some candidates opt to take it in their native language versus English.
Mhm.
Can you kind of discuss, is the online testing available in other languages, and what should candidates expect if maybe English is not their first language?
Yes. So the online exam is being offered in various languages and as well as various countries across the world. There are maybe a handful of countries it's not currently being offered in, but a vast majority of our international candidates are being able to take advantage of this as well, which is fantastic. The important thing for them to keep in mind is that the proctor that will be connecting while you're taking your exam is only able to communicate with you in English. And so it's important that you make sure to take the time to be aware of that and keep that in mind when you're completing your exam, regardless of what exam you're actually, what language you're actually taking the exam in.
Great. All right. And then when you're getting ready to take um, your exam, come exam
Mhm.
day, um, what should candidates expect as far as what can they have on their desk or in their setup, on their computer? Kind of what
Mhm.
should they expect in that situation?
Gotcha. So before actually starting the exam, before you connect with your proctor, one of the things that you're going to be required to do is submitting photos of the room that you're going to be taking the exam in. And what they're looking for in those photos is making sure you don't have anything on the walls, nothing with information written on it, anything like that. Your desk has to be totally cleared. The only thing candidates are permitted to have in the room is a clear glass with water in it, no other beverages. So you just have to make sure that everything is clear. I also do recommend making sure that you have logged out of any additional kind of programs on your computer before you get started, because if you get an email pop up or a Facebook notification or something like that, the proctor can kind of issue a warning or maybe even disconnect your exam. So double check to make sure that you have all of that taken care of, because you don't want any interruptions.
Great, that's great. I mean, I'm not a technical whiz, but it could also just mess up the technical features on your computer as well. So,
Yeah.
um, so what have been some of the major challenges from online testing that you've heard from candidates? I mean, you've kind of touched on a few of them, but is there anything that you want to like really make sure candidates know and are aware of?
Yes. So I think the first one is to just keep in mind that it can take a while for your proctor to connect. So if your exam is scheduled for 11 a.m. and it's 11:20 and your proctor still hasn't connected, don't panic. There is a process for how that is handled should that situation arise. Um, so don't let that startle you or cause panic or anything like that. Um, I will also say that some candidates have encountered technical issues. So maybe the website goes down or something like that. And in those situations, I do recommend maybe taking a screenshot with your computer, so that you have that information for the IIA when you submit your ticket. Letting them know that you encountered those issues, just so they can see exactly what happened, so they can approach that issue, have it taken care of, so that other candidates don't have the same problem down the road. Um, One other thing I do want to make sure to mention is for our Mac users out there, just be aware that a lot of candidates have experienced issues using a MacBook, for example, for these exams. So we recommend, if at all possible, to try using like something that operates on Windows. It just leads to a smoother experience.
All right, great. And so, you mentioned doing a screen grab of what's going on with the technical issues.
Mhm.
If a candidate does run into technical issues, or their proctor does not show up for some reason, or it just becomes significantly delayed, um, how should candidates respond to that? Like, what should be their next step?
So they'll want to submit a ticket in their CCMS account. It's an option that they should have in the top left corner there in that menu that they have available. You have an option to submit a ticket. There is a specific process for being able to reschedule the exam in those kind of situations. In every situation in which I've had a candidate reach out that was their experience, that maybe the proctor wasn't able to connect or they had technical issues, and weren't able to take the exam at their scheduled time, they were then able to reschedule it. They didn't have to repay their exam fees and things like that. So thankfully, the IIA has been really great about keeping on top of that and having that advantage for the candidates.
Wonderful. All right. So, kind of how long do we think online testing is going to be available? I mean, I don't know if this is doesn't seem to be a permanent option yet for CIA candidates.
Yes. So at this point, it is listed as a limited time availability. Originally, the IIA, when they first announced it, said that it was going to be for 90 days. So through the end of July was the initial time frame. But of course, the IIA is keeping track of everything that's going on with COVID, and they plan on, to our understanding, making this available as necessary. But it is currently listed as a limited time. So we're just keeping an eye on that, and we'll make sure to let our candidates know as we learn more.
Great. Okay. So candidates have sat for the online testing, and normally at the physical testing center you'll find out your score, your unofficial score, pretty quickly. Kind of what's been the experience with getting their grade reports now through the online testing?
Yes, so there definitely has been a delay to getting a score report from the online testing compared to if you do it in a testing center. Most candidates report that it's about maybe 24 to 48 hours before they get a score report if they do the online exam. Some have definitely reported longer than that. But usually my recommendation is if it's been more than 2 days and you haven't heard anything about your score report, just reach out to the IIA. Usually they're able to either get that information to you as soon as possible, or they give you a reason why, and you can take care of it from there.
Great. All right. So, any last minute advice that you have for candidates that are preparing to do testing online or are thinking about this?
I mean, realistically, it just comes down to if you think this is an option for you, I absolutely recommend going for it. At the end of the day, what matters is you being able to get this exam under your belt, making that progress towards your certification, and being able to tackle those new opportunities that will come available to you after you become a CIA. So it's a great option. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I recommend going for it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I want to add here that for all the CIA candidates out there that are, working toward their CIA, whether they've sat for parts in the past or this is their first time sitting for an exam, if, as Sarah said, if the online testing is available to you and you feel comfortable with it and you meet all the requirements, it's a great option for you to stay safe, stay comfortable. You know, since Sarah kind of touched on it, with Gleim, we do emulate the exam environment, but even more so, like if you're practicing for the exam and you're practicing in your office and now you get to take the exam in your office, that's just one more thing that you're going to feel comfortable come exam day. But the most important thing really is taking the exam, studying for the exam, taking it as soon as you're ready, and then moving on to the next part. But we also, I know we love to hear from candidates about their experience with online testing. So for candidates out there who have been doing online testing, or have maybe done physical testing and then also online testing, please feel free to contact your personal counselor and kind of share that experience with us. We love to hear the feedback. We want to be able to help as many candidates pass the exam as possible. So anything else you want to add, whether it's about the CIA exam in general or any other quick tips for candidates?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Like you said, make sure to reach out to us with questions or concerns, whether it's about the online exam, whether it's about the scores you're getting on your materials, or you just need some help with the registration process, whatever it is, we personal counselors are here as a resource to all of you. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to one of our team members. We're happy to help.
Great. Thank you so much, Sincera, for joining us today and having this conversation with me about online testing. Hopefully, candidates can feel, any candidates who might have had some anxiety about it, maybe feel a little bit more comfortable, and candidates that are on the fence, maybe help them make a decision. But either way, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today and joining us. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it.
So great. Thank you. And CIA candidates, best of luck on your exam preparations and on your exam day. Um, let us know how you do. We want to hear about your success stories, and anything that we can do to help you, please feel free to reach out. Also, please feel free to go to our website. If you go to gleim.com/CIA exam changes, we actually have a write-up about this online testing and kind of a little bit more detail that you can read about, and some helpful links for the registration process and kind of what to expect with that. So please check that out. And again, let us know if there's anything we can do. Best of luck, CIA candidates.